So I talk a lot about integration in the work that I do. In fact, I even call one type of coaching that I do, I call it spiritual integration coaching. And typically when I describe it, I talk about um, experiencing your spiritual connection and awakening and that open spiritual awareness, and then bringing that into your daily life. Like often we allow ourselves to experience that in a yoga class or when we're meditating, but then we're not able to bring that into our daily life. So this is the context I usually talk about spiritual integration with. But today I want to talk about a different aspect of integration. And even like took a peek at the dictionary at Webster's, and integration was talking about to combine the parts of yourself to make them whole. I guess it didn't say yourself, but to combine parts to make whole. And so there's another element of integration, and it's like taking the different aspects of ourselves and embracing them and seeing them as a whole. And the other thing is that we can do is we can look at the different aspects of our lives, the different periods or phases of our lives. Often these phases become kind of fragmented, like it's almost like we've lived, like it feels like I've lived like a bunch of different lives in this life. There were different phases where I was in a marriage, or I was at college, or I was doing this, or and they almost feel like they were like different lifetimes. They were like this phase of life that was different. And because of that, I think they continue to be maybe a little fragmented and disjointed. They're not unified, they're not integrated. And a really good example of this I just experienced lately. So there was this time in my life that I probably haven't talked about much, and it was when I was like my second year of college. I was at Penn State at the main campus, and it had been an interesting time. My father died when I was 16 years old, and shortly after that, I ended up getting a pretty serious girlfriend, and we went out for like 2.5 years, and it was kind of the first love, and I was just really happy. But as I did work on this later, it seemed like I maybe didn't totally feel the loss of my dad. Instead, I kind of fell in love. And then, so what happened, I'm going into my second year of college, my girlfriend and I, we broke up. And actually, it was more like she broke up with me. And so then what happened is that all this kind of loss of that and loss of my dad, it all kind of hit me. And there was it was kind of the time in my life when I was most depressed. And what I was doing at the time in order to manage this, I ended up partying a lot, and like smoking a lot of pot and playing the drums and going to see these amazing concerts, and I would go a lot of jam bands. Like at the time, the Grateful Dead. I was back east, and we'd go and see the Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers and Santana and these jam bands, and so then. A couple of years later, I kind of, with some therapy and work, and I met a spiritual teacher, I kind of pulled myself out of this kind of depression and in this kind of time. And over time, I kind of saw this time of my life as kind of, I've called them kind of the lost years. I think it's for like a John Prine song called like Jesus, the Lost Years. Not that I'm Jesus, but more like I just kind of have labeled this as those were the lost years. I was kind of floating around. Not much happened. I didn't really accomplish very much. I didn't do well in college. I did see some amazing music, however, and I played the drums and it was kind of the hippie phase of my life, really. And it worked because I pulled myself out. But so there was this time in my life where I kind of split off from myself. It was kind of like I didn't really own that as part of me. That was like maybe not as good of a part of me. That was kind of the lost part of me. It wasn't who and I didn't really embrace that. What is what I've learned. So recently I was out here in Bend, Oregon, and there was this my friend and I met, and and just to kind of get out, and and there was this Grateful Dead jam band, band that was playing Grateful Dead covers there. And they ended up being really good, you know. So I started watching, and they played this really good version of a song called Cassidy. It's like, wow, this is real. These guys are good, you know. These guys, and what happened is pretty soon I was kind of dancing a little bit, and they'd play a couple of songs, and pretty soon I was like almost crying. I like knew all the words, and I was like crying and having these like, wow, just really this joy of remembering these songs and remembering the times that I had, you know, the parts that I remembered because, you know, I was smoking pot and drinking beer and stuff. But the part, you know, I just remembered, it's like, wow, there was a real joyous part of this. It brought me joy. Watching this band brought me joy. And it helped me remember, you know, this time, the joy of this time of my life, which I had forgotten and kind of thrown the baby out with the bathwater. This was a non-productive, it was a depressed time of my life. And so what I did was I just ended up having a blast, and I was like dancing and meeting people, and I was just kind of, I was like Mike in the hippie days. I was like dancing around and just having a blast. It was just joyous. And I got home, and it's just the next day, it's like, wow, that was so much fun. That's as much fun as I've had in a long time. And so what I realized, it's like, you know, that part of me, and during that time, you know, I was still growing. I was learning about music and awareness, and that was like a really, I wouldn't be the same guy. And I ended up accepting that that is part of me, you know, like it or not. There's part of me that's kind of the hippie Mike that likes the Grateful Dead and that likes the Allman Brothers and likes jam bands and likes to play the drums, and that is like, and likes to do these festivals, and that is part of me too. And so as I embrace this part of me, it integrates that, and I become more whole, and then I'm more unified, and then I'm no longer like fragmenting that or disassociating myself from that part of me. I'm like now embracing it and welcoming it. And it's like, yep, that's part of me too. You know, I'm a hippie guy too. As you know, I'm not only this like, oh, I'm a spiritual teacher, or I'm this or I'm that. I'm like serious. It's like, but also there's a part of me that's like, I'm a hippie guy that likes to dance and likes the Grateful Dead, and saw entirely too many Grateful Dead concerts when I was young. And so it's like, and so this is something that I've learned. And so this is an example of a different type of integration that I would invite you this winter. I call it the time of introspection. I'd invite you to think about, you know, was there a time of your life that has been difficult for you to embrace? Maybe it wasn't productive. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't whatever it was, or it was really painful, which was the case for me too. It was a painful time of my life. And it's like, and was there a time of your life that's like part of you? It was like a lifetime within a life, in this life that maybe you've had difficulty incorporating and embracing. And I would invite you to explore that and just have fun with it, to go back to something that you enjoyed, like I did. Go back to something you enjoyed and see if you can find some joy there, and see if you can like reconnect with that part of yourself and embrace it and like bring it into your life, like own it, like, yeah, this is part of me too. So anyway, that is my video for this week. Thank you for watching. I hope you had an awesome Thanksgiving, and that you have a really great week, and that you are able to kind of find a time of your life and maybe work with it and integrate it and make yourself a little more whole and honor that part of yourself. So anyway, I will see you in a week.